Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take 5. Ron Vecchia here. Welcome to our show. It's all about music. At least that's what we'd like to show on our program, Take 5. A little different than Community Forum. Today we're going to showcase an organization that's been around for nearly 25 years, located in East Boston, but it serves the youth of the greater Boston area, including Winthrop. And we're talking about Zumix. And joining me today is Madeline Stachinski.
You got it.
Got that right? This is like a quiz today with me with pronunciation. Madeline is the co-founder and also the executive director of Zumix. And to her left is Ji-Yoon Kim. She's the community arts and events coordinator at Zumix. And these two young folks next to me, Angelina Botticelli. She's a youth participant and an events intern at Zumix. And finally, Mario Jajor. Mario is a youth participant and a youth engineer. So let's get right to it, Madeline. You've been involved in this thing since day one. So just give us an idea of how this whole thing came about.
So there's a lot of different ways to tell this story, but the basic sort of seed of the idea for Zumix was to figure out a way to keep a group of young people safe and engaged and happy for a summer in the summer of 1991 as an intervention to the gang violence that had really spiked in 1990 in Boston. And so the idea was to try and reach out into our community, see if there were young people that were interested in music. If so, get them together, do some reflection on what was going on in the city and what it was like to be, whatever age, 15 or whatever, growing up in the city, whether or not they had any thoughts about how to solve some of the problems that were happening in the city or why gang violence was really such a big deal right then, and to get them to utilize music as a way of sharing those ideas with their peers. So that was the idea, and we were going to do that for about 7 weeks and be done with it. And that
So
was almost
who was the
25 years
You
ago.
had a co-founder.
Yep, a gentleman named Bob Grove.
Okay, so you guys just took money out of your own pocket. But what did you do? Did you get a storefront? Did you do it at your house?
We lived in Maverick Square in East Boston in a very interesting development that was 14 units of housing that had been developed as artist live workspace. And we had recently moved into that space, and we did two things. We utilized the Harborside Community Center for some of our large group programs, and then used our home for post-production and pre-production and planning and all of that. But within the first year, all of the kids that we were working with were so interested in all of that stuff, and they were helping us load and unload the car and move things all over, that the whole thing really moved right into our home. And so for the first several years, basically the first 5 years, we worked out of our home.
And then you had a storefront in Maverick Square, which I guess was an old church?
No.
Or now it is a church?
Now it's a church, actually. No, we moved down. It's down the street. It's a little bit out of Maverick Square, but on Maverick Street, we rented a space at 202 Maverick Street. Oh, I miss it. It was an interesting building with a crazy history, but it's mostly known for having been a notorious old bar called the Cardinal's Nest, and it had been used for a bunch of things since it had closed as a bar, and then we came in and transformed it once again into a youth center, and used every square inch of that building all the time. I mean, it was amazing how that building served us.
So how does one go about getting involved in Zumix? I mean, do they have to make an application, or they just walk in and say, I'd like to get involved with a program at Zumix? What happens?
So we currently serve young people ages 7 through 18. So anybody who's interested in music in that age range can come in, fill out an application, and we have 3 semesters a year. So depending on where we're at in the year, we let them know what's coming up and what they can sign up for and the different kinds of classes that we offer. And that is everything from instrumental music to studio recording to, we're doing a pilot video production class this semester that Mario signed up for that he's all excited about. And he came in here and was like, oh my God, it's so cool. And we do radio programming. We do, what else? Songwriting, instrumental music, radio. Performance, dance, yeah.
We have a video that we'll show in a few seconds as we get going. I've attended several of the concerts at Jazz at the Firehouse.
Yeah.
Tell us about this beautiful space that you have now.
Yeah, I mean, Jiyun should tell you more about that, but it's we do have a beautiful space. So I had my eye on the building that we landed in since I moved to the neighborhood. It has always been a beautiful building, but when we moved there, it had been vacant for a long time.
And it was an old firehouse.
An old firehouse that was a city-owned firehouse, beautiful old building, built in 1923, brick building with beautiful arched doors and gorgeous big huge windows and everything. And the city closed that building because fire trucks got bigger and the doors weren't actually big enough for the trucks to really be serviced there. So they closed that building. They built a new building across the street, which is not nearly as beautiful, but it's functional for them, which is great. And this one sat dormant for almost 30 years. And then the city decided that they were going to rid themselves of a bunch of kind of dilapidated old buildings, including this one, which was a mess. And we had a vision for how to transform that building from an old boarded up brick eyesore into a real almost beacon of light at the corner of Sumner and Orleans Street. And so we just went to town on that vision. We were chosen by, it was a competitive bid process, and we got the building. And then that started a whole sort of community engagement process of thinking about what that building could be for our kids and for our community. And so the space is primarily designed and built for our mission, which is youth empowerment and development through music and technology. So we have all sorts of spaces that are specialty spaces, but the first floor is a large open space where those fire trucks used to pull in. We basically kept it big and open like that, put a little stage at the end and some beautiful instruments and sound system and lights. So by day it's a classroom, and by night it transforms into whatever we need it to, often into a venue for live music.
On that note, June, why don't you expand on that?
Yeah, definitely. So Zumix is home to a lot of young musicians, and what we like to do as a part of our community engagement initiatives is to provide like top quality arts programming for East Boston. There's not really a space in East Boston that's a music club per se. And while we're not a music club, we definitely are a musical space. So we like to open up our doors and invite our community members, whether that's families and friends or even the young people themselves, but also anyone else in the East Boston community or beyond that who wants to go see live music in East Boston, because we have the capacity to do that. And so we do that primarily through a couple of different series. Jazz at the Firehouse is one of those more prominent series that operates on 2 different seasons. There's a spring season that runs about 4 nights, typically in the May or June months, and then we do a shorter, more condensed series towards the end of the calendar year in November and December. And what that does is it brings in musicians sometimes from Boston, but sometimes from New York or greater New England, wherever the prominent jazz name that we're bringing in happens to be at the time. Usually they have a connection to Boston in some way or shape or form. And so we're bringing in top billing names into East Boston to not only perform, but also engage with the young people. So Angelina and Mario are actually 2 musicians who have played with that series, and they, on one note, get to open up the show, and then they also get to share the stage with those profound musicians for a collaboration song towards the end of the night.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. So, Angelina, I saw a video of you on WCAT not too long ago. It was taken, I guess, last year at the concert series. Yeah. Tell us about your involvement and just how it all began for you.
So I always was interested in music, but I never really knew what I wanted to do. So I remember my mom signed me up for piano lessons when I was 6 because the wait list was so long that I wanted to get my foot in the door. And obviously, since the wait list was so long, I wasn't getting a call anytime soon. But then one day, my mom got a call that there was a drum lesson that had opened. And I was just kind of nah, girls don't play drums. That's so lame. I don't want to be a drummer. And then my mom kind of pushed me into it, see if you like it. Don't just judge it by what it seems.
Go mom.
So yeah, I started with Michael Calabrese, and I know, yeah, and he was my first drum teacher. He was my first music teacher, aside from school, and honestly, I fell in love with it. It really got my foot in the door of Zumix, and I was 7 at the time, and I was at the old building that was on Maverick Street, and it was just it just really opened my eyes to how many opportunities you can get through music. So one day we were playing and he was like, oh, why don't you try to sing? Like, why don't you try to sing and play? And I was like, okay, like, sure. Like,
Sing and play the drums?
yeah, sing and play the drums. And I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'll try it. And I started singing and playing a Beatles song. I forget which one it was, but it was a Beatles song. And he was like so like mind blown, and I was like, why? Like, I'm just like singing and playing the drums, like it's not a big deal. And then he was like, after that, he like always really encouraged me to sing and play. And then that got me into singing more in like programs, and I joined Laura's programs for the Sprouts, which are like the 7 to 12 group that we have at Zumix. And I did musical theater, I did like chorus, and it just like really opened my eyes like to what Zumix has to offer. And more after like being affiliated with them, I started getting into other instruments. So I've taken piano lessons, bass lessons. I've taught myself ukulele and guitar. And I've never taken lessons for ukulele or guitar, but even though like I'm not taking lessons for it, Zumix is still like encouraging me to like perform it there and like share it with the other youth that go there. And I've also like done programs, like I have my own radio show. In 2013, I joined the Radioactive program that teaches you how to like use the board and stuff. And I've been doing a radio show for like 2 years or something like that, and it's been really fun. And I've done a lot of the songwriting and performance programs because I'm a songwriter and that's what I love to do. So through doing that, I was able to record a lot of my music in the recording studio that they have, and just like I recorded an EP, and yeah, it's been really fun.
That's
kinda
awesome.
how
You
I got
started when
into
you were
it.
7 years old.
Yeah, and now I'm 15, and now I'm working for them too.
That's awesome. How has music helped you even through school, like with your regular subjects?
Yeah, because I found Zumix and they've become like my family, and like they've become like something that I want to do when I get older. I this past like year, I guess, I auditioned to go to Boston Arts Academy for vocals, and I got in. So I'm a freshman there this year, and I got in for drums and vocals, but you can only do one major, so I chose vocals. And like I can tell by going to Boston Arts Academy and by going to Zumix how connected they are, in the sense that like I'm affiliated with all these youth that have the same like goals as me, even if it might not just be like music, it might be like visual arts or like dance or whatever.
Right.
It's still like they have a passion for the arts, and I've always been surrounded by that at Zumix, and it's just like really refreshing to like get that at school. So yeah, they've
That's
helped me
great.
a lot.
That's an awesome story. Mario, tell us about your story.
Yeah, so it all started in middle school. I joined the school band. I played trumpet. It was really fun. We learned a few songs. Eye of the Tiger, we performed in that. Some of the
Angelina did Eye of the Tiger too. That's funny.
yeah, so we would just play at the school, just at whatever events there were held. And by the end of the year, I couldn't keep going to the middle school and taking trumpet lessons. So when I finished middle school or elementary school,
Now, this was in East Boston?
no, in Revere.
In Revere, okay.
So I've been living in Revere for a
Okay.
while. Once I moved to the middle school, my teacher let me keep the trumpet if I promised him to keep learning music and playing the trumpet. So I took it with me to middle school, but there was a problem. There was nowhere to take lessons. I couldn't continue the passion. So I asked people if there were any places I could take lessons, anything like that. And my guidance counselor recommended Zumix. So that's when I signed up. I got a call, I had an interview. I was really nervous. And Corey was there to interview me, and it was great. So I started with rock ed. You perform rock music with a bunch of other youth. I also, from there, that was where it all started, and this was 4 years ago. So rock ed turned into playing the drums, singing, which I was really nervous about doing because my very first instrument was the trumpet, and it wasn't like playing guitar or anything like that.
Right.
But you know, being at Zumix for so long, you start picking up other instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, you know, there was rock ed. I got more advanced with the music, and I started picking up other instruments, and eventually I got into the rock ensemble, and that was Miyagi and the Kids at the time, and it still is. And I've been in the group for a little bit over 2 years now, playing music with them. I've branched off into songwriting classes with Corey, performance classes, so we would write music for those 8 weeks, and we would tour around New England. We would go to Vermont for a night.
That's awesome.
I did Streetwise. We wrote music, and we recorded in the recording studio, and that's where another whole passion was born. I really enjoyed working in
The
studio.
engineering passion.
That's it. Yeah, so after that, I started going into the Z-Tech part of Zumix. Music technology, I took Z-Tech Studio, Z-Tech Fix-It, Z-Tech Live.
So you're involved in all different aspects, not only taking instrument and vocal, but the technical aspect of it, the mixing of the music and so forth technically.
Right,
That's
so
awesome.
the back end and the front end of the whole production. So, you know, after studio, you do recording lab every Wednesday and Friday from 3 to 8. You go in there and you do whatever project we're working on, usually Streetwise or independent projects like Angelina's EP. So after doing that for a little bit, I decided that's something I really love, and hopefully through Zumix, I'm gonna have the opportunity to continue on with.
Now, had you, in your mind at all, ever thought about engineering prior to even getting involved with music?
No, I wanted to become an architect.
See that?
In elementary school, I had a passion for like design and just like buildings and stuff like that.
It's not that far off. You're an architect of sound.
That's right.
now.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I
You
was
may
thinking
marry
the same
those two
thing.
things at some point.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Madeline, Angelina mentioned the radio station.
Yep.
Now, I know you had one that was actually online, and something
We
has
do
changed.
have one, yeah. No, we have had a streaming station for 10 years, but I actually, it's interesting, I found a document that we created probably 15 years ago, which was this flow chart, and it was a flow chart that was looking at if a young person entered Zumix at any given time, what would a multi-year experience look like for them, and in each category. And it was actually, it's a cool document, I should share it with all of you, but it showed in the songwriting and performance programs what would happen in the first year, the second year, the third year, and then what. And same thing in the music technology classes, first year, second year, third year, and then what. And in the what was the other one? Songwriting, instrumental music. Songwriting, instrumental music, and music technology were kind of the three core areas. And that was the first time when we created that document, is the first time that we put radio down as a seed of an idea. We didn't have a station at the time, but we were thinking of that as something that in the audio technology field you would graduate into, to do radio and sort of take all of the technical skills and marry them with your passion for music or for interviewing people around topics that were music related. So that was the first seed of it, and then we continued to, I remember we wrote a grant, we got a little bit of money, we hired a gentleman named Steve Provisor, who had a long history in Boston of doing low power radio and community radio, and he came in and helped us build it in our old building. So we took this, it was a conference room, a kind of ugly small conference room, and we tore everything out of it, and that station was held together with like bubble gum and paper clips, but and I remember it was just hilarious how we had to wire that and set up that room. But we took an old round table, not that much bigger than that, and we drilled a hole in the middle of it and had, microphones coming out from it so we could have guests come in and be interviewed. And that was the birth of Zumix Radio, and that was 10 years ago. And I remember still the first graduating class of radio DJs. And that some of them did programs, like they all did their own programs. Some of them did music programs, some of them did talk programs. We had some really precocious young people who were doing like talk show, like news-related talk shows. A young man named Ishmael Saeeb, who lives really close to the Winthrop East Boston line, super smart, even when he was, I don't know if he was 16 or something like that at the time, and had his own talk show and was always talking about politics and current events and everything. Another one of our alumni, Erica Downey, did a show called A Walk in Their Shoes and got all sorts of interesting people to come in as guests and would interview them about their career path and how they got there, you know, because young people are trying to figure out what are they going to be doing.
Right.
And so that was her thing. And then a lot of people who are doing music shows, et cetera. So we have a history now of doing radio for 10 years, but it's always been streaming radio. And recently we were approved for a low power FM license. So we are looking forward to this coming year because we have two really exciting things that are going to happen. We are going to celebrate our 25th birthday, which is amazing and a really unlikely story, honestly. And so I feel blessed and kind of amazed that this seed of an idea that we had so long ago has actually continued to grow and to prosper and to evolve. And so it's in another stage of evolution, and you know, all these folks are so much a part of that at this point, and I get to kind of begin to back myself out of it and just watch. But the radio is going to be a really big piece of this coming year, so we're going to start broadcasting this summer, and it's a 3.5-mile radius from the broadcast tower, and that 3.5-mile circle is pretty impressive in terms of where we'll reach, which will be all of Winthrop.
Sure.
Honestly, it covers all of Winthrop. It covers a big chunk of Revere, and I think almost all of Chelsea, all of East Boston, some of like downtown Boston, all the way up to almost Copley Square, South Boston. I mean, there's a large number of people who live and work in the area that we're going to be reaching. So it's pretty exciting.
Interesting. I've known you now for maybe 7 or 8 months, and you just when you talk about Zumix, it's just like you love to talk about it because it's so much of you.
Yeah.
It's part of you. What does it really mean to you after 25 years? I mean, you just every time I look at you, you just and you're so proud of all the kids when you mention a student that was there maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's just like, you know, it's interesting that a person is so much emotionally involved in this as you are.
Yeah, it's funny. So if you go back to the days that we were working out of our studio, out of our apartment, the kids who were involved at that time, who are now like in their late 30s and in their like 40s, I remember probably in our 4th year we did an event where they did a skit and they pretended to be me and Bob and the other people involved, and we sat back and watched it.
Footage of that?
Probably on the Hi8 tape. We'll bring it over here and do some conversion. And they pinned me down, which was like I definitely move from an emotional center, and I believe that our organization has been successful both because we have a mission that we all believe in, but also because we start to work from a place of relationships. So we really try and create the preconditions for people to get to know each other both personally and professionally, and to love each other and to care about each other, and then to work side by side towards a mission that's bigger than any one of us. And I think there's something really magical in that. I've had people tell me that they think Zumix is my church. Like, amen, hallelujah. So I'm a little bit missionary about it. I think it's an amazing place. I do feel like the impact that it has both on the students who come, on the staff who plug in, on the board members and the volunteers that plug in. I just feel like every single person who plugs into it is enriched by the experience. And sometimes challenged by the experience. I mean, I have many sleepless nights worrying about this crazy organism. But I do think that we're all better off for being part of something bigger than ourselves. And so it's pretty wonderful.
Let's show the folks at home a little footage that Mike Cabral took as we went through the building, the physical building.
Yeah.
And you can give us, you can do a little voiceover for it.
Sure. I think Angelina and Mario should do that because they know the place. They know these spaces better than I do. I'll tell you about the admin space.
Tour guides.
That's where I sit all day. But, oh, that's such a nice picture.
That's home.
Yeah, that's our home, and that picture was actually taken right when we moved in, and it was done by a beautiful friend of ours, Paul Doobie took that beautiful exterior shot. That's our chill out hangout spot.
Yeah.
That's Mario's shirt on the back
Yeah,
of the
I
chair.
was
No, I'm
gonna
only
say
kidding. I don't know whose it
Mario's
is.
Yeah.
Well, it's like being in somebody's house.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I get that
Wow,
impression
we
when
should
I
have
walk
fluffed
in
the
there.
pillows, you
I know,
guys.
them
What's up?
pillows.
That's
The
Mario's
recording
spot right
studio.
there. Yeah.
That's the control room.
That's the
usually-
rock star
in there.
jacket that you get to wear if you're really in the mood. Jimi Hendrix, you know. But this looks a little bit familiar to you guys, I'm sure, too. It looks a little bit like a television studio. So this is a recording studio, lots of bells and whistles, and Mario spends lots of hours in that space
Yeah.
behind that control board. And Angelina spent time on the other side of that glass window right there. Probably
And
holding
there's
that
musical
guitar.
instruments everywhere.
Yeah,
Everywhere. yeah.
Everywhere you look.
everywhere.
Yeah.
The live room.
Yeah, so that's where the musicians actually play when we're doing recording projects.
Mhm.
So for example, Mario would be on that side we just saw with all the buttons and knobs, and then Angelina would be in this room, or perhaps in that little back orange room with a sort of vocal booth to get a more isolated sound back there.
Okay.
But you can have a full band in there. There's enough space in there, for a bunch of people to create a lot of
Yeah.
noise, controlled noise.
That's awesome.
And I think part of my role now as the founder, I think, is really trying to make sure that people understand that we started this organization with almost nothing. Because when I look at this footage and I see really visually where we've come to,
Yeah.
if somebody walks in the door right now and just sees all this equipment and this fancy building and all this space, and they think it just landed from, that like some rich person wrote us a check and we just like
Bought
did this,
everything, yeah.
they're missing a really important part of the story, which is that this all came because we really worked hard, and we worked hard consistently on a mission that we believed in for 25 years. And so we've built it out of nothing. And yeah,
And that's Zumix Radio.
That's their radio.
that's our radio station.
That's
isn't
home
it
base. That's in the
nice?
basement of the firehouse.
Yeah.
So
Very professional looking, just like a
plenty
regular.
of room for a host and several guests at a time. And that's where we will be broadcasting from. And the tower is actually going to be on East Boston High School rather than on Zumix. And there's a
Because of the high
partnership
point
element
where
there.
it's located. That's high.
Yeah.
We
And-
will be building a small studio in East Boston High School as well, so that they can do some broadcasting directly from the school. And we're really excited about that evolving partnership because we've done some really great work up there.
Yeah.
The main stage.
The main stage downstairs.
So part-time classroom, part-time performance space is what we're looking at right there. So that's where the jazz series, for instance, happens. That's the stage area with all the beautiful lights and whatnot. And on the back side of that was a big open multi-purpose space for room for a standing concert or seated event or our Thanksgiving dinner, whatever the day holds.
So how do you survive in terms of funding?
We work really hard.
You do fundraising,
we have
obviously.
survived. I mean, this is the thing that's really remarkable is that we started literally with $200. I put in $100. My friend Bob put in $100. We opened a passbook account, not even a checking account, like a passbook account at East Boston Savings Bank. We scribbled like a little design on a piece of paper and copied it a bunch of times, and that was our letterhead. And we started really with nothing except for what we had in our home and in our minds. And we actually we modified our program models to meet the changing needs going forward. But we've been slowly raising money, and I think if you look at our trajectory over the years, you'll just see it continuing to like climb a little bit every year and to evolve and develop and evolve and develop. And I remember when Bob actually stepped down. So Bob was involved for the first 5 years, and then he stepped down as co-director, and it was left in my hands. And I remember having a panic attack, and I'm like, I don't know how to run a business. I know how to work with kids. And my board of directors was amazing, in particular one woman who I haven't been in touch with for a long time. I need to get back in touch with her. But she took me aside and said, Madeline, I got married, had 2 children, had my whole life planned out for me, and my marriage fell apart. And I was like, how on earth am I going to raise 2 children by myself? I can't do it. and both of my children, one of them's graduating college, one of them's graduating high school and got into college. They're doing beautifully. If I can do this, you can do this, kind of. So to have the trust and the respect of my board, and to have their support as I was going through my own evolution, and then bringing in people, like, I know my weaknesses, I've got lots of them, but trying to bring in people who complement me and have other kinds of skill sets. It's expensive to operate at this point. We employ full-time about 10 people right now, I think, and in total, I think there's probably 30 or 40 people employed by Zumix.
Now, do you
Not
have a
including
website?
the one-off, musicians and all that we hire during the year. So
You have a website?
we do, yeah.
Okay, so if folks have
www.zumix.org.
questions, they want to hear more about Zumix, they can go on your website, and also on Facebook, I understand.
Yeah, you just like our page, you'll see not overbearing stream, but nice little updates for events or just things that happen. For example, like a young student, Leslie, walked in the other day with her report card, and she went around to every staff person to show off her report card because she was so proud.
That's
so we
awesome.
gave her a shout out. So you'll see things like that, and also see all of the events so you don't miss anything.
Well, I thank you guys for coming in today and sharing the Zumix story with
Our
the folks
pleasure.
in Winthrop.
Ron, thanks for having us, and
My
thanks
pleasure.
also for all your support and helping out with the jazz series.
My
And
pleasure.
we've got a lot of people from Zumix from Winthrop. A lot of, like, the whole sort of nucleus of the jazz planning committee
Right.
actually is from
Paul
Winthrop.
Roy and company.
Paul Roy,
Yeah.
Phyllis,
Yeah.
Esh, all those people, they've really been wonderful. And so Winthrop has a long history of doing great work for the arts, and we're really proud to be working with all of you guys. And
Well, as we had told you, this is the beginning. We're going to do something a little more elaborate. Mike and I are going to work on doing a documentary about Zumix, to really get more involved and so forth through the history and so forth, because of your 25th anniversary.
I know,
Beautiful.
this is so awesome. So thank you.
So thank you for joining us. And
Thanks for
that's
having
it for today on Take 5. Hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, this is Ron Vecchia.
Turn here. There. Excuse me.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.